Her own father told her not to come home, so she became his boss's boss. She paid her family's bills for 2 years, until they told her she was too embarrassing to show off. If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father. That was the last thing he said before their house lost power, water, and internet. The boyfriend her family adored. Yeah, he works for her now. Liam didn't leave because of anything I said. He left because of who you are. No revenge, just truth and silence that said it all. Ready to hear what happened next? Alun is my name. I reside in a tiny town about 50 minutes away by car from Boston, and I am 33 years old. I prepare myself a cup of espresso every morning, listen to the weather report, and then walk a little more than a block from my house to my office. My job as a co-founder of a biotech firm in the healthcare industry is difficult to describe, especially to those who believe that office work merely entails entering data all day. What I do has never been understood by my family. Or perhaps they had no real interest in doing so. I've always been the strange, younger sister to them, the one who wore minimal clothing, rarely applied cosmetics, and was constantly hooked to her laptop or attending meetings. They are most proud of my older sister, Sophie. They have always viewed her as the ideal daughter, yet she is 3 years older than I am. Lovely, elegant, kind, and endearing. Even in pictures of the family, I was only a minor detail in Sophie's picture. Family members would assemble around her on Christmas or Thanksgiving to give her praise. You look amazing in that dress, Sophie. Or your new lover is a doctor, Sophie. Amazing. And me. The statement was always if anyone even remembered I existed. Elena, yeah, she's doing something in biotech. As if I were a footnote at the bottom of the page, they talked. I used to believe that my parents would one day see me and be as proud of me as they were of Sophie if I put in enough effort, stayed behind the scenes, and took on the burden. However, she always received all the praise, all the expectations, and all the attention. And me, I was always aloof, abrasive, and difficult to talk to. They were unaware that I had stayed up until midnight, managing a crisis for a roughly $2 million public health initiative. They never inquired about the experience of starting a business from the ground up with 3 pals from college. When someone inquires about my family, I simply grin slightly and respond, not because I'm concealing anything, but just because I've run out of things to say. We haven't spoken in a while. It's nothing. It had been more than 2 years since we last spoke. No birthday greetings, no calls, no texts. Nothing but quiet. No one made the effort to reconnect, like a broken connection. I once thought that family was a place you could always go back to. But that belief was dispelled one day on my mother's birthday. It was the end of March. I had recently finished a profitable capital round with a New York-based investment firm. As usual, I was going to take 3 days off and catch an early flight back to assist my parents in getting ready for Mom's birthday. Not very fancy. As usual, I merely wanted to lend a hand. My dad answered the phone when I called to inform them. I'm planning to come back early. Let me know if there's anything you need me to pick up or prepare, I replied. His voice is still in my memory. Strange but not angry. A brief silence. He cleared his throat after that. Elena, if possible, don't come home this year. For a moment, I hesitated, wondering if he was concerned that I was too preoccupied with my job. It's okay, Dad. I've already cleared my schedule. I really want to be there. He spoke firmly this time. Claire is bringing her new boyfriend. He's a CF, well-spoken, clearly successful. Your job, well, it's hard to explain. You showing up would just invite comparisons and make things awkward. So it's best you stay. I became numb. A chilly sting ran down my spine as my chest constricted. I clenched my teeth and grasped the phone, saying, "Are you saying I make the family look bad? That I shouldn't come home because I'm an embarrassment?" He didn't retract it. He actually stepped up his efforts. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." He hung up after that. Without hesitation. No second thoughts. It became disturbingly quiet in my flat. I was holding a chilly espresso cup. It felt like a single syllable had split the world apart as I gazed into the void. I refrained from crying. I merely sat there. And I came to a realization for the first time in my life. The family I had worked so hard to maintain no longer included me. With early spring sunlight streaming through the white curtains, I sat in my comfortable window-side armchair, unable to warm the cold inside of me. My father's remarks reverberated, unequivocal and conclusive. "Don't call me your father if you insist on coming." I turned to face my hands. My fingers were shaking, not out of rage, but from something more profound. The tipping point. I had always believed that I was still their daughter, even if I would never experience the same level of affection as Claire. As it happens, I wasn't. I got up and made my way to my desk. I opened my laptop and opened my banking app without thinking twice. I had been giving my parents money each month for more than 2 years, paying for their internet, cable, water, and electricity bills. Every month, almost $6,000. Not to mention the additional messages I would write when Mom mentioned that Dad's automobile required repair or that the refrigerator had broken down. They never inquired about my financial situation. They just stated, "After changing employment, Sophie is having difficulties. It would be fantastic if you could assist." I also contributed, silent, like it was my responsibility, as though taking on duty were an unseen agreement I had made when I first began working. I scrolled through the transaction history. The sum of $15,720 appeared. My heart fell. Even after all of that, I was never enough. Not because I felt bad about it. I looked over the internet, water, and electricity bills. Click. Then another. One by one, the following notifications appeared. The auto payment was successfully canceled. Not a single alarm, no caution, nothing but quiet, similar to how I had always been a part of my family. I had trouble sleeping that night, not because I was upset, but rather because I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened, what my father had said, and how my whole family had been prepared to ignore me in order to win over Sophie's new lover. I had never even met this dude. I had spent my entire life being compared. However, I had never been publicly rejected before, as though my presence were a bother. Mom's birthday arrived in a flash. I did not make a call. No card was sent by me. I didn't publish anything on the internet. I couldn't fake longer, not out of spite. My phone buzzed at precisely 5 p. while I was enjoying peppermint tea on my balcony. It was my mother. After a few moments of staring at the screen, I turned it off. Immediately after, a message arrived. "Why is there no power, Elena? Could you please check?" I put down my tea and read the next note, which was from Dad. "No water, no internet. Give the providers a call. Your mother is going crazy." I sat silently, staring at the rear tree line. No rate, no discomfort, just a strange silence. They did not inquire, "Are you all right?" Nothing regarding the phone call. All they wanted me to do was tidy up the mess, as I always did. Then Sophie sent a text. "Mom is on the verge of tears. Guests are arriving, and the internet is down. What's happening?" I grabbed my phone and entered. Dad informed me 3 weeks ago that I shouldn't call him my father if I insisted on returning home. I'm only following his instructions. Perhaps locate someone you're not embarrassed to introduce if this is inconvenient. It wasn't sent by me. I removed it. I knew they would only hear what suited them, regardless of what I said, not because I felt bad about it. I put the phone down, closed my eyes, and reclined in my chair. It was quiet and silent in my tiny flat. No grievances, no critical glances, no requirements. Sophie left a voicemail the following day. "Ever since last night, Mom has been crying. Are you aware of the significance of yesterday? Everything fell apart when my boyfriend first met the family. You're really self-centered." I heard the entire message. I then switched my phone off. I hadn't been self-centered enough for years. It was time now. I checked the weekend operations report on my work email. One particular subject line caught our attention. Staff transfer from New Jersey to Boston, awaiting approval. I glanced over the names in the attached list before stopping. Prescott Liam. My heart skipped a beat when I heard that name. My mother had brought it up only 3 days prior, so I recalled it. Liam, Sophie's boyfriend, is employed by a large company. I narrowed my eyes at the file. Head of Finance, New Jersey branch, as of right now. Moving to the Boston headquarters. Elena Warren, co-founder, approved. I laughed a little, just out of habit. I had underestimated the size of the planet, and I was aware that the coming was just getting started. My chest felt hollow as I sat motionless in front of my laptop, my hand resting on the mouse, as though someone had stolen a memory I had held onto for too long. Almost $16,000. Not a single penny. I paid every dime of it, month after month, without prompts, without any delays. Nevertheless, they had never said, "Thank you." Not once. As I went back through the payment list, I kept seeing the same lines. $192.48 for power. Water costs $136.72. Internet and cable costs $248.50. Like I was their unpaid family accountant, month after month. Not visible, not acknowledged, ignored. I thought back to my mom's final phone conversation, which was roughly a year ago, when she called around midnight to just say, "Elena, the bathroom pipe burst. Can you call someone? Sophie's on vacation with her boyfriend. You're the only one left. You're the only one left." It sounded innocuous. However, it wasn't. The reality was bitter. Not like a daughter, I was loved. When the people they really cared about failed to show up, I was just the answer. I finally understood when I was warned not to return home, since it didn't seem like I belonged there. Nothing I did throughout the years was ever met with love. Only when a problem needed to be fixed or a payment needed to be paid was I remembered. However, when did I need something? There was nobody. My phone came back to life. A note from my mother. "Elena, I know yesterday got a little tense, but if you could take care of the internet bill, that would be great. Sophie is trying to keep things calm with the guests." Like a stranger, I gazed at the message. Don't apologize. Nothing about my father's brutal rejection. As usual, just another request. Without responding, I put the phone down. After that, they went outside into the porch and sat on the wooden chair while the April sun faded. Even though Boston wasn't yet warm, the cool air somehow let me think more clearly. Liam, Sophie's new boyfriend, and now my new employee, crossed my mind. The irony, he was going to report directly to me, and because of him, my family had not invited me to Mom's birthday. This would be the best joke in a comedy about life. After I got back to my work, I opened the email. The headline caught my attention. Verification of new hire Daniel's transfer to the Boston office. I selected the profile. Everything was in line. Age, experience, degree. Sophie would want a resume that was professional, knowledgeable, founded, charming, on paper. I glanced at the picture that was attached. It had a familiar feel to it. Then I recalled that around 6 months prior, we had met briefly at a convention. He named me co-founder Warren and shook my hand, but neither of us understood. In other words, I never gave Sophie enough thought to recognize the man standing next to her. I now had to decide whether to accept or reject the transfer. However, I understood I didn't have to take any action. The ideal script had already been written by life. All I had to do was wait to see what would happen when Sophie learned. The family was mortified when her boyfriend informed the sister. Liam showed up at the office the following day. His face a little tight, he strode into mine holding a folder. His eyes paused on me when I looked up, then widened in surprise. "Elena," he inquired quietly. I gave a small, collected smile. "Thank you for visiting Pacific Genomics. This quarter, I will be going over the full financial plan. I'm excited to collaborate with you." Liam stopped. His face became pallid after flushing. My family was unaware that I was a co-founder of this business. I had never been asked what I actually did. They simply thought I was a desk worker of some sort. I remained silent, simply slid the document in his direction. Liam accepted it and slipped out of the room. I reclined in my seat. I wasn't content. I wasn't depressed. I simply had the impression that things had finally changed. I also didn't have to speak this time. The truth was self-evident. The sky in Boston was unusually gray on the morning of my mother's birthday. Everything appeared hazy due to the heavy fog that pervaded the atmosphere, as if the planet itself was waiting for something to fall apart. I sat at the window, made myself a strong black coffee, and gazed out at the deserted yard. I had no intention of doing anything. Don't text. No phone calls. No post on your birthday. All I wanted was for everything to happen exactly as it was, without me. My phone chimed at 9 in the morning. Mom's first message. Elena, sweetheart, I think the power's out. Can you check for us? It's an important day. I put the phone on the table, face down, the same tone. Nice. Keened. As if nothing had ever occurred. As if my father hadn't warned me that I should not have shown up because I embarrassed the family. After 15 minutes, there was another message, this one from Dad. Still no power. Water's not running either. Is something wrong with the payments? Call the provider now. Brief, chilly. Don't worry. There was no mention of my exclusion from the celebration, just a directive, as if I were still in charge of their logistics. I let out a sigh. I hadn't missed a single payment for cable, internet, water, or energy in the past 2 years. The night my father hung up and cut everything off, I canceled them all one by one, since I was difficult to introduce. The house was now in disarray on the day Sophie was presenting her boyfriend to the family. No power, no water, no internet. Just as anticipated, the inundation of messages began about 11 a.m. Elena, please, I'm begging you. Guests are arriving. Can you just help this once? No electricity. We can't cook. Where are you? Take care of this now. Seriously, Elena, today is special. Mom's about to cry. There's no internet. I can't call anyone. I'm losing it here. Can you stop being selfish? I reclined. My coffee was chilly. I didn't feel validated by the texts. I wasn't satisfied with them. I felt nothing but emptiness. A silent, unyielding void. The phone then buzzed once more. It was Aunt Grace on a video call. Despite my infrequent responses, I was the only family member who continued to send holiday greetings. After hesitating, I responded. With just a phone flashlight for illumination, her former kitchen appeared. Her eyes were a little red, and she appeared fatigued. She whispered, Elena, your mom is freaking out. It is dark in the house. While everyone is rushing around, nobody is sure what to do. I told her I said nothing. Just took a look at her. After a moment, Aunt Grace added, without accusation or defense, what took place? Your mother's birthday has never been missed by you. I am aware of your motivations. But make a statement. I inhaled deeply while maintaining a steady tone of voice. According to my dad, I damaged the family's reputation. Advised me to stop referring to him as my father if I persisted in attending. I gave her a direct look. What should I do next, in your opinion? Aunt Grace stopped. Her expression changed suddenly. I could hear the sounds of mayhem in the background. The harsh, piercing voice of my mother echoed. She's most likely simply pouting. Nobody would be cruel enough to act in this way. Then there was a harsher voice, Sophie's. Liam will arrive soon. The electricity company has already been called. It's unbelievable what she did to us today. I smiled a small, glum smile. Aunt Grace listened to everything. She didn't stand up for anyone, didn't offer justifications. She remained mute and motionless. Then the screen suddenly moved. A fresh face came into view. Liam, the same tidy outfit, the same polished look as on his resume. He gazed at the television before uttering, almost uncontrollably, Elena? Everyone fell silent. Elena Warren, are you the person in charge of Pacific Genomics? With calm eyes, I nodded. A long silence. After that, Liam turned to face the group and remarked, "She is directly above me. The person who gave the go-ahead for my Boston transfer." Stunned quiet. Sophie's mouth fell open. My folks froze. Nobody spoke. I calmly answered, "I hope you have a good introduction today," and hung up. Without saying another word, I put my phone down after the call. Dim afternoon light streamed weakly through the heavy dark clouds beyond the window. I could hardly believe how calm everything was around me. Not a voice. No text to follow up. No phone calls. It was just me and a weird, weightless relief after a truth that they, not I, had exposed. I didn't have to reveal anything. I simply kept quiet and allowed everything to happen precisely the way it was supposed to. Liam had amply verified it. His superior was me, the Pacific Genomics co-founder. They thought I was merely a desk worker for the corporation. My family's kitchen turned into a theater at that very moment, where nobody was able to stop the masks from falling one by one. And my sister Sophie, that person who once suggested to Mom that Elena choose a career that would be easier to introduce. Now, he stood motionless next to an unlit birthday cake. She had put a lot of effort into impressing her partner with a picture-perfect family and meaningless praises. Ultimately, though, it was that very lover who publicly referred to me as boss. I could visualize the scene as if it were replayed. My mom almost dropped the cake tray because she was so agitated. Red-faced, my father was holding on to the table's edge, and the family members, who had come just for food and condemnation, sat in stunned silence, their eyes darting as they attempted to comprehend what had just transpired. Aunt Grace was still on the phone. Her eyes were more respectful now than inquisitive. She remained silent, only nodded slightly before hanging up. Sophie sent me the first message that night. Long, sloppy, a mixture of desperation and rage. "You allowed it to happen at the party, so you knew all along, didn't you?" Mom has spent the entire night in tears. Liam is unsure on how to respond. "Elena, don't you think that was cruel?" I saw the notification appear on my screen. I didn't open it immediately, though. I sat on the couch and brewed a cup of ginger tea, allowing the steam to relax my constricted throat. I was not happy. However, I didn't feel bad either. 10 minutes or so later, I clicked reply. Only a few lines. No more is required. "I was cruel, you say. I was only at home. The video call was not initiated by me. I didn't refer to myself as his supervisor. I took no action. And if the entire celebration may be ruined by just one truth, perhaps the foundation of that party was never strong in the first place." I sent it. I wasn't anticipating a response. My phone buzzed once more, 30 minutes later. It was my mother this time. The message was brief. "I never thought you would choose to retaliate against the family in this manner." I sat back in my chair and closed my eyes. Return. Did they believe this to be that? I simply recalled being excluded from a family gathering, being fired from my position as a daughter because my work wasn't good enough. Without a single check-in, I recalled silently paying dozens of payments over the course of 2 years. I recalled making a lot of effort to fit in, to receive love. And now, I had given up trying. Liam sent me an email at around 10 o'clock at night. Unspoken, "I apologize for not knowing sooner, Elena. For your efforts and for remaining silent today, you have my utmost respect. It wasn't you that made me feel so embarrassed." After reading it, I slowly responded, "Liam, you don't have to say sorry. Everyone is in charge of their own perceptions of other people. And don't worry, I never discuss personal issues at work. However, I hope you now understand. Silence might be the strongest thing at times." I put the phone face down on the table, clicked send, and shut off my screen. I would still report to work tomorrow, as normal. Reports would need to be reviewed, meetings would need to be planned, and the world outside would continue to change. There was only one difference now. Today, they who had before disregarded me were suddenly aware of my identity. And without a yell at all, without making any charges, they had become silent because of me. As I entered my workplace the following morning, sunlight seeped through the glass panels, illuminating the space with a warm, golden warmth. The atmosphere was serene, as though the cosmos had granted me a few minutes of alone before the bustle of the day resumed. As usual, I turned on my computer, sat at my desk, and checked my email. One unread mail was in the priority inbox. Daniel sent it. Subject sorry and farewell. I made the click. Elena, I'm not sure where to begin, but I had trouble falling asleep last night. I've been contemplating, in front of so many people, what transpired most likely shouldn't have happened. At the same time, though, I have an odd feeling of clarity, particularly about you. The fact that you are Sophie's sister does not embarrass me. I regret not seeing her for who she really is sooner. If there is no basic respect in a relationship, I can't stay. I am quitting my relationship with Sophie as of today. I appreciate your silence yesterday, and I appreciate your modest, firm, and equitable leadership style. Liam, I read it twice, then reclined in my seat. I wasn't pleased with Sophie's breakup. This had nothing to do with victory or retaliation. Simply put, it felt right. It was as if someone from the outside had finally noticed what I had been living with for years. I was advised that I was overly sensitive to certain things, or too chilly to say anything. Now, they were seen for what they truly were by another person. I didn't respond. No necessity existed. My phone lit up around 2 hours later when I was looking over the finance team's financial summary. Sophie's message. Elena, I understand you're busy, but will you kindly speak with Liam on my behalf? He doesn't understand anything. I read the message. Be calm. Unmoved. I took a while to respond. 5 minutes or less later, another message arrived. You are his supervisor. You are influential. If you speak up, he will change his mind. I got up and went to the window to look down at the crowded street. I had hoped Sophie would send me just one message in all those years. I was in pain during one check-in, one piece of advice when I didn't succeed, one indication that she thought of me as more than just the shadow of the family. However, nothing was present. And now, she turned to me now that her relationship had fallen apart. Not to say sorry, not to get back in touch, but to make it better. I went back to my desk and started typing. Nothing I said caused Liam to leave. You are the reason he left. And perhaps he actually saw it for the first time. I sent it. Sophie took a while to respond. However, an hour or so later, a fresh message showed up. You're correct. I don't want to lose him, though. I will change. This time. Please. Only this once. I didn't answer. Not because I was upset, but since I had already explained everything. The early spring breeze was still cold when I left the workplace that evening, but the rooftops were glowing a rich orange as the sun sank. Without hurrying or worrying, I took my time walking to the parking lot. I felt light, perhaps for the first time in years. I hadn't wanted retribution. I had just been true to myself, and let the remainder to come to light. Sophie was responsible for this conclusion, and Liam, who had previously been enchanted by the appearance of a flawless family, had at last noticed the underlying reality, the one I spent the majority of my life on. I played an old playlist that evening, the kind of music that, in my early startup days, made me feel invisible. However, the tune sounded like a silent affirmation tonight. I had emerged from the darkness, not by shouting, however by remaining steadfast, and neither Sophie nor anyone else in my family had anticipated that. I was no longer in need of approval. All I had to do was be myself, and lead the life I so richly deserve. A week or so after things had settled down, the doorbell rang on one of the few Sunday afternoons when I chose not to check my laptop. I didn't think anyone would show up, and I nearly disregarded it. However, I had to peek through the peephole for some reason. There at the gate were my parents. To give my mind time to process what I was seeing, I stood motionless for a few seconds. With a weary expression, my mother grasped a tiny bag. Although his eyes were not as steely as they had been during our previous contact, my dad's arms were crossed. I pulled the door open, remained silent. My mother's voice was raspy, as if she had just landed after a lengthy flight, and she began by saying, "Hello, honey. Can we enter and have a brief conversation?" Silently, I moved to make room for them. No hugs, no cordial salutations. From the hallway to the living room, there was just a thick silence. I put 2 glasses down, poured some water, and took a seat across from them. My mother looked about the flat, which was clean, uncluttered, and unaffected by my parents' presence. My father was the first to speak. "Regarding your mother's birthday, I said a few inappropriate things." I said nothing. After glancing at me, he went on, but more slowly. "We might have been a bit harsh with you. Since the split, Sophie has been a complete wreck, and your mom hasn't stopped sobbing. Thus, we desired to take a seat. Speak. Similar to a family." I remained silent, just gave a small nod. I was curious to find out where they were taking this. I was accustomed to the lengthy build-up before they arrived at their main destination. My mother immediately jumped in, as I had anticipated. "Well, we have a proposal, actually." After a moment of hesitation, she set the bag on the table and took out a printed document. "We've considered it. You are currently stabilized. You're doing a fantastic job. We would appreciate it if you could give us a monthly donation, around $2,000, just enough to pay for insurance, living expenses, and a small portion of retirement funds." I glanced up at her. $2,000 a month. As if worried that I would misinterpret, my dad stepped right in. "It's not a lot. For a person in your place. Elena, we're family." I straightened my posture and spoke in a calm voice. "How about Sophie?" My mother paused. "Her health isn't good. Following the split, she's down. Work isn't going well. She cannot be coerced by us." I chuckled quietly, not with resentment, simply because everything seemed so familiar. It was usually Sophie who refused to be coerced, and I was the one who could manage it every time. I gave them a direct glance. "If Sophie consents to pay her share, 1000, and a contract that you both sign makes it clear that all assets, including the house, will belong to me when you both pass away, then we can have a conversation." The room was silent. My father's face reddened as he furrowed his brow. "Are you really imposing demands on your own parents?" I was not blinking. "Not under any circumstances. Fundamentals. Over the past 2 years, I have already spent almost $16,000 on this family, and no one has ever acknowledged it. Things must be made plain if you want me to go on." My mother's voice began to falter as she turned to face him. "Perhaps we should discuss it." However, he leaped from his chair and slammed his hand down on the hardwood table, causing the glasses to clatter. "After more than 2 decades of raising you, when we now ask for a little assistance, you insist on a contract." Unbelievably, I remained staring at him. "I don't owe you anything, Dad. If you believe that raising me was an investment that requires a return, line by line we can calculate it. However, I will no longer pay for it," with quiet. He appeared to be about to argue, but he froze, his lips clenched. My mom got up and gave his arm a light tug. "Leave now." I got up and escorted them to the door. No hug, no farewells. The only thing left was the gentle wind coming in from the balcony when the door closed behind them. I knew in that silence it was the end of another chapter, and the last line was written by myself this time. My parents didn't get in touch with me again after that day. No phone calls, no message it, no charge it, not even an apology for the tantrum that had swept through my house. As though their challenging daughter was the reason behind every setback in their lives. However, I wasn't shocked. I had been accustomed to that level of quiet, the kind that isn't motivated by guilt or regret, but from those who are unable to communicate when they are out of control. I continued to live my life. Coffee in the quiet mornings, Late into the night, strategic deliberations took place, making agreements with business associates who previously questioned whether a young woman could manage a biotech company, and I no longer felt sorry about it. I gave up believing I was mistaken for declining the position of backup wallet, the caregiver by default, just because I was capable to handling it. Because you must ultimately comprehend. Love cannot be quantified in terms of monthly installments. Furthermore, a sense of obligation cannot be used to compel it. If love is only present when the bills are paid, it's not family then, it's a deal. I began severing the unseen threads that bound me to the positions they had given me. I stopped using a picture of my family as my phone's background. I had forgotten Sophie's birthday. I sent a small gift without marking the holidays. I stopped hovering over messages filled with remorse, waiting for them to perhaps apologize first. I became proficient at using the period on my own. Liam, who is currently our company's head of finance, showed up one day with an investment report during a team meeting. He was professional, focused, and maintained a polite distance at all times. Sophie was never discussed. Not once, and I was grateful for that. When completely understood, there are some things that are best left unsaid. It was raining when I left the workplace that afternoon. I chose a seat by the window when I went by a cafe I knew well. There was a carved wooden sign on the wall. Home isn't always a physical location. It can occasionally be a decision. As I sipped my steaming latte, I thought back on my journey. I had thought that if I remained silent and was sufficiently responsible and gentle, I would eventually be welcomed. However, if you let others to grow accustomed to treating you disrespectfully, they will begin to view your sacrifices as duties and your silence as consent. I decided to speak up, not to defy my family, but for my own safety. I decided to establish limits, not because I am self-centered, however, because I at last realized self-worth cannot be determined by the pity or urgent demands of others. And if I were to be asked, Elena, do you regret not helping your parents when they needed you? My response would be, I'm sorry it took me so long to see that I was worthy of better, because you are viewed as a complete person in a true family, not a wallet, not a substitute. It's not a backup plan for those who consistently put you last. I am aware that some individuals may find my story difficult to believe. Refusing to do family responsibilities is frequently viewed as ungrateful in modern society. Try putting yourself in my position, though. Because she wasn't polished enough to introduce herself, the daughter was excluded, the person who silently paid tens of thousands and never heard, "Are you okay?" I didn't go with the conventional definition of family. I made my own decision. How about you? Was I too chilly, in your opinion? Or did I discover self-love at the appropriate moment? Leave a comment with your thoughts, because your tale could occasionally be the light someone else needs when they are torn between freedom and obligation. Additionally, if you have ever felt isolated within your own family, you're not, I assure you. Elena's tale serves as a potent reminder that no one must put oneself in danger for a connection devoid of respect that merely bears the name of family. When you decide to love yourself, learn to set limits and cease allowing people to take advantage of your generosity. That isn't being selfish. That is growth. Elena had no desire for vengeance. She opted for respectful quiet to confirm her value, and occasionally the strongest action. The first step to true peace is this. How do you feel about Elena's decision? After years of being harmed, was she just protecting herself, or was she being too harsh? Comment below with your thoughts. And remember to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth and significant content about self-worth, healing, and having the guts to make your own decisions. The thing about silent strength is that it can be heard without shouting. Sometimes choosing peace, establishing boundaries, and creating a life you're proud of are more effective forms of retaliation than drama or rage. This should serve as a reminder that you are free to leave if you are still hurting from betrayal. Get better, expand, and decide on you. Have the people closest to you ever betrayed you? We'd be happy to hear your experience, so please share it in the comments. Because sometimes the first step to mending is speaking your truth. Thus, how would you have responded